I didn't know what sales enablement was till a few days ago, and now I is one. It's really, and I didn't know I was one before I realised I was one. But I'll tell you my story very quickly. I joined IBM 20 years ago as a BDE, Business Development Executive, in the Life Sciences Emerging Business Unit right across APAC. And that's because my background is very much in life sciences. I did a PhD in genetics a long time ago, started a couple of my own companies. The first one was venture capital backed, and that was in this bioinformatics space. And then IBM moved into my space, and I had these IBMers walk through my office telling me how clever IBM was in life sciences. And I thought, oh yeah, sure. But I was kind of dragged in, and 20 years later, here I am. And it's really interesting because 14 years ago, I joined the learning team. And in that time, I've evolved from orientation classes, and I'll tell you about orientation in a sales enablement point of view in a moment. And about 8 years ago, I moved into sales learning as a focal point. So it was really interesting. So I think we all would agree, I think, that learning is a part of sales enablement. But we've heard already that sales enablement is more than learning. So, and I've seen that more and more than ever this week. It's really exciting to hear that. So let me take you, though, just on a sales enablement journey from a learning point of view, with your permission, because that's my focal point. And one thing I've specialised in is virtual learning delivery to make it super engaging. So I'll show you some of my tips. I've got 5 tips I'm going to share with you. But let me tell you a story quickly, because I was actually, on my journey here, I was sitting, can we all remember what we were doing in March 2020? Yeah, good to hear a laughter there. I was sitting in the office of my partner Fiona's cafe in Ultimo, just around the corner, answering or looking at my emails. And as we do, we read our emails, and of course they come in, you go from top to bottom. And the first one said that, actually, I'm a bit worried about this COVID thing. I don't think I should come to your face-to-face class in Sydney next week. I said, oh well, that happens, doesn't it? And then the next mail said, oh, by the way, all travel in Australia is now restricted to only sales-based travel, not for learning. I said, oh no. Then I went through the email. The next one said that all face-to-face learning is now postponed indefinitely. And you can imagine how I felt about that too. So my baby, this sales learning delivery is my baby, was now suspended. But it's not quite as bad as it sounds, even though we used to love our face-to-face classes. This is an example of one when we could do it many years ago. It now became, okay, we've got to do it differently. And I'm sure many of us had to pivot big time in the last couple of years. So part of our pivot was, of course, taking all of our face-to-face content and making it virtual. Fiona was not so lucky, my partner Fiona. That's her cafe now. If you want to go down there in Harris Street in Ultimo, gone. And I'm sure we've all had friends and family who've been affected by COVID. Well, she's now got another role, not running her own business. But fortunately, we could pivot within IBM. And the IBM story for sales learning is really quite interesting. Because when it goes to going virtual, we've been doing this for a long time. Back in 2011, when I was delivering face-to-face orientation classes, we sat around and said, maybe we could take these virtual. It's a big country, travels a long way. We have a lot of people coming on boarding to IBM. Maybe we should do it virtually. And I remember when I had that conversation with one of my colleagues, Lorraine Takuni, and I said, good idea, Lorraine. You can't orient virtually. It's nuts. But we gave it a go, and we used this technology back then called Centra, which is part of it's a Saba product. And we kind of made the leap to virtual delivery of orientation content. So we were kind of ready for COVID, how should I say, arresting our face-to-face delivery. But I didn't like it. Back in 2011, I didn't like it Now, I'm sure we all know what it's like to deliver content virtually. Do we use Zoom maybe, or Teams, or WebEx maybe, or Blackboard Collaborate, or something else? Yeah, we engage that way. Well, you know what it's like to do that the first time you do it? It's just terrible. You feel so detached, because it's like giving a presentation like this, staring at a blank screen thinking, hello? And of course you've got voices, but I can't hear you. I don't know if you're there. So I had to develop a method to stay sane. So I went to my kids' Lego collection, and I pulled out minifigures, and I built a virtual room of people out of minifigures. And I seriously, I facilitated my content to a bunch of little Lego minifigures, and it changed my psychological state. It was really good. Crazy, but good, and no recordings. But that actually helped me get over that deep. In fact, Big Tin Can yesterday, when I saw the virtual sales room you could walk into, I love that. We even had some classes at one point of time in virtual worlds. And I remember the one time that my microphone and my speakers weren't working, and I thought, my God, I can't hear these people, and they're all walking off virtually, and I'm detached. So we know this feeling of connection virtually is critical. And if we're not connecting with our participants in a virtual delivery of enablement content, and emotionally, we've heard that today too, emotionally connecting with them, then we've lost them. And there's a lot of facts about how much we can lose. Well, I'm going to give you 5 tips today. And I'm hoping that, I know we're all experienced people in the room, but I'm hoping there's at least one thing in my 5 tips that you'll be able to take away. So the first one I like to call is to get ready to fly. Now, you need to think about your virtual delivery environment like a vehicle you've got to learn to drive, or a plane you've got to fly. And sometimes we think we know how to do something quite well, but when it comes to those technologies for delivering content, it's a little less like driving a car. We can just jump into any car and drive it, if it's a different car than one you normally drive. It's a bit like this, isn't it? When you're flying a plane, if you can imagine flying a plane, when you're driving or flying WebEx for the first time, or Zoom for the first time, or whatever the tool is, you've got to learn how to fly that damn thing. Does anybody here use WebEx? A couple of us, IBMers in the room. You've got to learn how to use the interface, but all the controls of the interface. And there are many, aren't there? You say, this is not a presentation on how to fly the plane, but flying the plane needs to be a unconsciously competent skill you need to get. Otherwise, forget it. You're not going to do it effectively. And this is you also need the environment set up. So this is a photograph of my office at home. And I want to take you through 16 things I do at home. First thing I do is I have what I call a production laptop, which I deliver from. And secondly, I have a second screen to help me do that, so I can do things off multiple environments. I always log in twice, so I can see and hear what I'm delivering. It's not a mystery. And acoustics, I was talking to Alison today, our friend from Cochlear, about the importance of sound. You've got to have really good headsets, and have a number of them in this case. You need a good camera. Vision's important too. And you also need a good lighting. So this I call reflective lighting off the back of the back wall there. You need, I use flip charts. I'll show you how I do that, because I can redirect the camera to look at the wall here, and marker pens to write on the flip charts. I have an iPad, which I also use for virtual flip charts. And I also have lots of materials here in terms of making sure that the audience can see what I'm doing. The next one is reference books at the top there, because I'll show you how I use reference books as well. And also down here, after I share them, I keep them in a pile so they can remember what I've shared with them. And then I take a photograph of all the books I've shared afterwards. And in the live virtual environment, I always play music. You can bring that in to make it an engaging experience. And I've got virtual candy. I'll show you how I use that too. I bribe them. You turn your camera on, I'll give you a virtual candy. And it works. It's crazy, isn't it? First person to turn your camera on, virtual candy for you. So this is the kind of environment which I set up to make the classes more engaging. So I'll give you a few examples of how I actually use all these resources to make things work. Have a parking lot for materials there, a run sheet, everything. So that you've got to have your setup right. Otherwise, you're flying a damn plane here. It's pretty complicated. Now, the next thing you've got to have is what I like to call the maps for the terrain. Now, this is content. I'm so impressed with people who do everything. I'm very lucky my content gets delivered to me from a global sales learning delivery team. But the content is well tested. This is the Global Sales School content which I deliver through sales learning. And the results come in from the participants that they like it. It helps them to be more proficient and efficient and effective sales professionals. What else matters for sales enablement? We've got to help the sellers sell, and it works. What we deliver works. So the content's great. Here's an example of the 2020 quarter one content, of which half of it was already being delivered virtually anyway. So we had a good runway by pre-COVID, February 2020, but overnight, of course, we had to deliver the rest virtually. But what's also important, there's been a lot of conversation yesterday and today about coaching. I want to tell you how we deliver this content. I facilitate the content, but we also have sales coaches. And out of 5 of the 6 modules in this Global Sales School class, we have sales coaches come in and take groups of 4 sellers. And let me tell you how this works. It's very cool. So we have role plays where the sales coaches role play a client. Then a group of 4 sellers go into a breakout room with the role-playing sales coach, and for 20 minutes they have a sales conversation. Then for the next 20 minutes, the 3 observers give feedback, and then the sales coach gives feedback. So the seller learns from 4 people's feedback and their own experience. And then that group of 4 moves to another breakout room, and they repeat with the second of the 4 sellers, and then the third, and then the 4th. So in 3 hours, they observe 3 other sellers, they give feedback 3 other times, they hear feedback 4 times, and they're giving feedback 12 times. And the amount of learning that happens in 3 hours is phenomenal. But this is done thanks to good sales coaches. Anyway, we had to take these face-to-face classes and overnight transform them into virtual classes too. So that happened. But the sales coach involvement was fundamental to the success of this program. Here's a good example of a WebEx sales coach debrief. And we bring the guys together after the breakout rooms are finished. We bring everyone back to plenary and we get all the sales coaches to give commentary in plenary of what the general learnings were that they had in their 4 breakout sessions. It's really, really powerful learning. So the learning is happening the whole way through. And this is, again, how do you make a seller? How do you help a seller be a better seller? What else is enablement? I know there's more to it than just that, but what else is there? Here's our 2020 version. Overnight, our leader of IBM Technology selling globally said, I want a new program and I want 6 weeks back to back. And it starts with 2 weeks of onboarding. And in the onboarding program, all done virtually, in the 2 weeks of the onboarding program, I do the first week, and the first day is get your laptop. The next 4 days are engaging online, virtual learning through WebEx again. And we have SMEs come in to explain the IBM sales plays, the technology decision points, the go-to-market model, how the business works, the IBM Tech Zone. So there's actually a lot of learning about what we sell, as well as in the subsequent clusters, we call them, how to sell. But again, just like with the other versions of this class, which is now 100% virtual, we have sales coaches in 7 out of the 8. So again, coaching. You know, it was so good sitting here yesterday hearing the value of coaching. I knew it, but wow. I mean, we do it all the way through the program. I hadn't sort of thought about it till yesterday. Now, globally, the team produces online learning content, self-paced learning, but there's also an online resource. And this, we call this a digital learning guide. And this goes on for a number of blocks, number of activities for block, and one per class, which is called a cluster. So it's pretty deep content which we get given, and it's a very well-established program in IBM. It's been going for 20 years, but you know, it's nice to have a global team developing stuff, I have to tell you. Okay, let's talk about engagement. Now, you're going to lose people if you don't engage them. I'm sure you all know that our attention span has dropped from a massive 12 seconds to 8 seconds, which is 1 second slower than a goldfish. You know, to keep people's engagement is really hard, man. I mean, you know how easy it is to get distracted. It gets even worse with digital devices everywhere. So when you're delivering content online, you're fighting this, aren't you? Fighting it. And if you can fight the distractions and add value to the participants, then you're winning. And this is a high cognitive load task you have. It's a lot of work. It's much easier for me. I can wander around face to face. I can engage you differently this way. When your cameras are all off, I can't see you, you're not talking. It's really hard, isn't it? It's really hard. So I'm going to show you some of my techniques. Here's my virtual candy. So it's bribery, but people love it. You know, turn your camera on, answer a question, and I'll offer you a virtual candy. You know, people just love it. There you go. It's yummy, isn't it? It's just yummy. And people, they want to have more. Use virtual flip charts. So I've just turned my camera around here, and I'm scribbling on a bit of paper. I say, really? Yeah, really. Now I scan these in afterwards on my printer, and I pop that in a box folder. So after the class, they get the recording. Oh, by the way, I record every class I do, and pulling this presentation together for you guys, I went through hundreds of hours of old recordings to pull out a few 10-second blocks. But I always share the recordings with the class afterwards too, along with the flip charts, along with the books, along with everything. I'll show you that in a second. Here's another one. Oh, by the way, sometimes you're not in your home office. So here I am in an IBM office using my laptop's camera, and this is a wireless headset, and I've stuck these big post-it notes in on the wall. And you can engage that way too. You've got to kind of be innovative and think about, good God, where am I teaching from today? Delivering content from St. Leonard's, okay, right. Bring the flip charts with me, good. Bring the marker pens, good, yeah, got it. Here I am using an iPad, sped up a few times here to speed it up for you. Again, teaching a sales engagement model called FISH, and using multicolour here. And again, because of the iPad, I can just upload the PDF afterwards, quicker and easier. And the feedback I'm getting from participants is they prefer this one to me scribbling on a bit of paper. Fine. Yeah, you always got to be learner-centred. And I'll tell you about learner-centred in a minute. Here's another one. I share books. Now, there's our bookshelf above me. They don't see that. So there's this mystery. Books keep coming down. What do you got up there, man? So you keep it engaging, keep it fun, keep it interesting, keep it relevant. Because if the questions from the floor are all about how do humans engage, well, you reach for the social book. Or if it's about being mindful, grab the mindful book. If it's about building trust, Trusted Advisor book comes down. It's about 12 rules. 12 rules might come down. So whatever it is, the book's up there, I can pull it down. But you've got to have the books, of course. You can't cheat on that. And of course, other tools, we use Mural all the time. Here's an example of Mural board, and I love it when you get the little mosquitoes buzzing around, and they're typically participants in breakout rooms working together, but then I'm watching and recording the entire action happening on my screen, and Mural's a great tool for that. So you need to design the Mural boards, of course, to make that work. Slack ad. Do I get a prize for that? Slack virtual lolly. So we use the WebEx chat to engage, and I save that in the box folder. We use Slack to engage because you can copy and paste stuff and chuck it in Slack, and they've got the Slack channel there, and using all the tools that are out there for you, like Box, is great because there's this common repository for content which they can go back to later and review and learn from it. It's great stuff. So you need to use the tools. Okay, penultimate tip. We want our sellers to be client-focused. If you're delivering content, you need to be learner-focused. You've got to be seller-focused if you're delivering to sellers. So it's all about being client-centered. Now, we've had a client or learner-centered training program since 2007. It's been a long time. It's a great content. And we used to deliver it this way because most classes were done face-to-face. Well, early this year, there was demand for making a virtual version of this class. So at the beginning of this year, I actually took this content, made a 5-day, actually 5 half-day, live virtual classroom version of learner-centered training, which has just been fantastic. Now, I deliver that to facilitators globally within IBM. So I teach them how to fly the plane, then how to be learner-centered in their delivery and engaging, and then how to deliver content that's ready and appropriate for virtual delivery, and then, of course, the practice and teach back. And here's an example of 10x fast, example of teaching people how to fly the plane. And here I'm sharing WebEx screen inside of WebEx and showing them where the controls are, because if you can't fly the plane, you can't even begin to engage. And it's complicated. There's a lot of stuff in there, but if you want the audience to be engaged, you have to know how to fly the plane. So that's kind of rhetorical, but it's worth saying anyway. And now the last tip, and this is kind of where we started yesterday, actually. I thought it was great. Who are you? In whatever you do in sales enablement, who do you see yourself to be? In my case, just about all I do in enablement is to deliver learning content for sales professionals through programs like the Global Sales School program. So how do I see myself? I see myself as a facilitator, as a coach, as an enabler of learning, of someone who connects people together. I have a lot of responsibility in the role I have because we're asking our sales professionals to go out there and to engage with their clients and to make connections. But I'm also like a talkback radio host, or kind of like a Kelsey, what's his name? Cram, yeah. So a bit like I'm on the radio and talking to people as well. So it's a mindset. So the question is, how do you see yourself? Because when you've got a good identity, then you can project that through the way you engage with your audience or whoever you're engaging with. It doesn't matter who it is. And I think that's one of the great challenges of the sales enablement community. What I've heard yesterday and today is, who are we? I've got a very clear view of who I am. I facilitate classes, but I collaborate and cooperate and can work with my sales enablement colleagues such as Georgia. But I'm a supplier to Georgia. And she is my client in that context. But I'm also I now realise a sales enablement professional. I didn't realise that till kind of yesterday morning, really, well, really today. And I'm proud because I think we do a great job. This is really important what we do. It's really important. I teach IBM sales professionals how to sell, not what to sell, where to sell. I do a bit of where, and the how, and the what's kind of mixed in there. But it's not about what or where, or the back end systems, which is so complicated. But it's the how to sell. So at least I know exactly what I'm doing. So we have to know what we're doing, I think. So that's it. I'm going to say thank you.
Thanks, Tim. I'm actually very pleased that your office is bigger than those first pictures. I was going to have to report OH&S to you. Yeah. It's more like the TARDIS when you looked inside of it.
Yeah.
My setup is definitely inadequate at home, I can tell you that compared to that. Who's got questions? Lee.
Thanks. Is this on?
Will be.
Oh, wonderful.
Lovely.
Well, firstly, I always put the books behind me so people think that I've read them.
No, the stack bills throughout
Yeah.
the class, so that's all right.
That's good. I've been training and enabling people across the APJ region, and I often struggle with engaging people from Southeast Asia and India due to cultural differences. Particularly, my delivery style is sort of a cheeky, chappy, jocular kind of approach, which doesn't always naturally gel with those audiences. It goes really well in ANZ, but I do struggle sometimes to get engagement, and I was wondering if you had any tips for me.
Oh, Lord, that's a great question.
Talking about cricket helps, by the way, if you're...
Yeah, for culturally, for India, South Asia, cricket's a good go-to place. One thing that's helped me, give me a lot of a leg up here is that I've travelled so much in my first years with IBM. So I could talk about the times I've been in Malaysia or in Singapore and Indonesia or right across India, Bangalore. I might ask for, oh, great, can you make me a masala tea? I'm really my favourite tea, you know. And then we'll do a virtual kind of push it through the camera lens. But to keep it as culturally relevant in the comments and the quips and the humour you use, to make them, the other side of the camera, feel like you are kind of, you have that empathy with them, you understand their experience.
Safe space.
Yeah, create a safe space. And there are some cultures where that's very hard and where there's a language challenge. I mean, I can talk about that to my Korean colleagues when I've been in Korea, but there's often a language challenge there as well, because everything's done in English and our territory is very much APAC. And sometimes it's global. So, yeah.
It's hard. I think it's also if I could add to that, understanding their environment at home. I found some of our folks in India, they live, there's 2 or 3 families in the house and they've got their camera off and they're on mute a lot of the time because it's pretty chaotic in the background.
Very much,
so
and I'll share
understanding that is important and
100%.
Giving a bit of leeway sometimes.
100% Kel, yep.
I loved all the tips. My question is a very practical one. So when I'm doing virtual facilitation, I'm very conscious of eye contact. And so when you're looking at chat, looking at what the next slide is, looking at your notes, looking at the participants, if you've got screen, I noticed you had a screen down to your left, and you've just asked someone a question and they're answering and you're looking down.
Oh, man.
How do you deal with that? How do you think about that?
Well, in the remaining seconds, seriously, I run a class called Present with Eminence, PWE, which is a separate class, and there's a virtual version and a face-to-face version. We call that eye lock. And you've got to get the right amount of time when you're looking at that green dot, and the screen's there, but the green dot, the camera's there, and it feels weird, but you don't have to stare down the green dot, but you've got to look at it occasionally. You just have to do it. And it's a habit you've got to get into, to look at the dot, look at the lens.
So you're very conscious of that?
Oh, very. And look, record yourself. You're going to hate to do it, but watch your damn recordings. And listen, and listen. Acoustic quality, where's Alison? Acoustic quality is fundamentally important. But you don't have to have, I've got a Rode, in one of the back shots you'll see a big Rode production microphone. I never use it. As long as the microphone, I use an Apple headset, my iPhone headset. Perfect. But you've got to be very crystal clear, and you can, by listening to yourself, you see how well am I engaging with my gesticulations, with my eye contact, with my voice. Use your voice like a musical instrument. If you haven't watched that Julian Treasure TED Talk, watch it. Unbelievable. You've got to play the instrument as well.
iLock. Yeah, when are we signing up to the iLock class?
Yeah, it's tough.
Alison, you got one.
More of a question, but not really a question, but could you send us a picture of your book list? Super curious what you keep on your special bookshelf.
Oh, yeah, it was up there on the screen, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I missed it, but would love just how you pull it in.
What's funny is how it kind of bubble sorts to the bottom right. So they're the ones I'm always drawing on.
Yeah.
But there's constant content.
Yeah. Anything I'd add if it helps with Southeast Asia, I use a lot more breakout rooms.
All the time.
Whole sessions don't work. And
Yeah.
then name before at the beginning rather than the end, so it doesn't feel like you're picking on someone.
Oh, yeah.
They know what you're going to ask them.
Yep.
They're listening.
Yep.
It's a simple one, but it helps a lot more.
100%. And there are tools there's so many other tools which I haven't talked about, like we use Slido is built into WebEx now as an app, and the polling and lots of things. But absolutely for cultural engagement, 100%.
One more question, Joe.
Mine's maybe a little cheeky, so forgive me. First of all, thanks for the Thunderbird recall. That was fantastic.
Did you love that?
Waiting for Virgil.
I was warned not to do that, so most people won't know what they are.
It was fantastic.
Well, too bad.
Fantastic.
They came out the year I was born, I think. Good
to
Lord.
Lee's question, I guess it's interesting about the broader APAC engagement. We've kind of tripped in or fallen into actually building songs from different places and playing songs.
Yeah, lovely.
It really opened my eyes because there's a lot of beautiful music that you hear from other parts of the world. So it just kind of helps you unpack this diversity or bias towards me playing music because I like it and from an Australian point of view versus getting them to actually build a playlist. And,
I get people to call. I take requests.
Yeah. So there's your on-air kind of radio jock thing.
100%.
But I'm interested, mate, you've been quite open with what you now call yourself as a sales enablement professional in the last 48 hours.
Sure have.
Can you just take me back 72 hours ago? How would you articulate yourself in terms of your expertise now that you had an aha moment?
Yeah. I help people find their inner greatness through coaching.
That's great.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.